Ask Earl Anything. This is the show where your questions make the show. Without questions, there's definitely not a show. I do have a few questions from June. I have a few video questions. I have a few features this month because I didn't have a lot of questions. I only had a few, but I have enough questions for a good show. It'll be a nice length show. But I want to talk about my recent trip to Hilton Head, South Carolina. I want to talk about my visit to the Gretsch Factory. I want to talk about today some questions I got from my good friend Yuri Jones in the UK, my drum student, Sean Woodley, and I got another interesting video from one of my subscribers, 805 Breeze. His name is John. Just to show you what this is all about, really, is I do drum covers to inspire others to practice and get better at their craft and to learn how to play and just enjoy life with drumming. So drumming for life, you know, there's a guy on YouTube named Drumming for Life. He's a great jazz player and other player too. But I didn't choose Drumming for Life. I took Earl Drum, which has been my handle for on AOL forever. So if you ever want to get a hold of me, it's earldrum@aol.com. It's been out there for such a long time. I just get it. Of course, leave your name and make it a personalized message, and don't send me any links, because if you send me a link to something I don't know who you are, you can bet I won't be opening it. But earldrum@aol.com is my email address, and Earl Drum is the name of this channel, Earl Bennett, Earl Drum. And the reason for that is that was my first way I'm known out there on the internet, was as Earl Drum. So the video on the front end is 805 Breeze. His name is John. He's from New Jersey. He's an ex-police officer, retired. Thank you for your service, John. And I thought it was interesting that he was so inspired by my drum cover of Barry Manilow's American Bandstand. So he was playing along to it, and you can actually see it off to the side. He's actually playing along to me playing the song. So I thought that was so cool. I had to share a little bit of that. Great job, John. So let's jump into some things I wanted to talk about today. First off, I want to talk about Hilton Head, South Carolina. My trip to Hilton Head, South Carolina was kind of a last minute kind of thing about 2 weeks ago, actually about a week and a half prior to the trip. Good friends of ours said, hey, we've got a timeshare and we're not going to be able to use it. Would you like to take it? And I took the opportunity to do that. So thank you, Jackie and Ken Kendall, for that wonderful timeshare that you let us have. Now, on the journey up to South Carolina, and it is up from Florida where I live, on the journey up, I said to my wife, boy, it'd be great to get a tour of the Gretsch Drum Factory, which is in Ridgeland, South Carolina. Now, of course, how do you get a drum factory tour at a drum factory that doesn't really give tours? Well, you have to know somebody, and I knew nobody in South Carolina to do that for. So our first night in South Carolina, we just got in our room. I'm ripped. I drove 7+ hours to get there. My wife says to me, hey, there's music next door at the restaurant. Let's go next door and have a drink and just sit there and watch the music. And I'm like, I don't know, honey. I really want to stay in the room. No, let's just go. So I go. And when I get there, I hear the music and there's real live drums. I'm thinking, well, they got a band? No, they didn't have a band. They had a guy named Mark Husbands. Mark Husbands is a musician in South Carolina. He's toured with other bands and done road acts, and for 30-something years, I think he made most of his lifelong career drumming. Had a beautiful walnut finished Gretsch kit. He was playing along with his iPad, and his wife was doing sound, and he was singing and playing drums. That was his act. And I came to find out from my sister-in-law, who we had dinner with on our last night there, my sister-in-law and her husband, that he's been here before. And this is their restaurant they go to when they actually come to Hilton Head. So I didn't even know that the resort I was in was right next to the restaurant that my sister-in-law wanted us to go to on Friday night, which we went to. Now, Mark was not there on Friday nights. He's there on Saturdays. So long story to long story. I walk in, I see Mark, I see the drum kit. He finishes the song. My wife goes to the bar. She's going to get us a drink, and she's going to come back. And I walk up to him, and I don't normally do this with drummers, but I walked up and said, "Hey man, I love your playing, and your drums are exactly like mine. I have a kit the same color, you know." And we started talking. I found out that he was a player, and he went to Berkeley and a couple other things, and that I was a player, and we started connecting. He said, "Hey, do you want to sit in?" And I was going to sit in. That's another long story that I'm not going to get into, but why I didn't sit in that night. But what ended up happening was he was playing at another bar the next night. I went in and I sat in, and I put some of that video on the YouTube channel. So that's Mark Husband singing and me playing a few tunes. I will tell you, it was a little bit, let's put it this way. I cut it, all right? But the first tune, I did not, if you don't know the intro to a song, that is a death knell for a drummer. And I did not remember the intro to the one song. So it took me a few bars to get in it, but once I got locked, I was okay, and the rest of the time I was fine. Did 4 or 5 songs, had a lot of fun playing. To be honest, we didn't really talk about the Gretsch Factory other than the first night, but on Monday morning, I got a text message from Mark, and he said, "Hey man, I talked to Paul Cooper at the Gretsch Factory, and he said, give him a call and he'd give you a tour." So I gave him a call, and Tuesday morning at 9 a.m. we were there, and we got a little tour of the Gretsch Factory. Had a lot of fun at the Gretsch Factory. So I'm going to show you a little bit of the footage in the background of what was going on at the Gretsch Factory. But Paul Cooper was a wonderful man. Really, he's been running that factory for the last 30 years almost. He's been innovative in helping to bring in the Brooklyn series, the Broadcaster series, re-engineering that, the old Broadcaster series from the 50s. Really learned a lot about Gretsch drums, and really some really cool things about the new lines of drums and finishes and bearing edges, and we had a blast, my wife and I. And I'm hoping to one day possibly bring him in on an interview on the YouTube channel. That would be a wonderful thing. So we'll see what we can do, but you'll see some video of him in the background behind me, and what's gonna, transpire. Maybe I'll do a little thing on Gretsch drums and my visit to the factory later on, but I wanted to just mention him today. So Mark Husbands and Paul Cooper, 2 people I met drumming in South Carolina. So that was pretty cool. Another thing I wanted to talk about was I had my interview with Zach Jones, the new drummer for Sting, personal friend. I had a blast with it. I'm glad you guys have watched it, and many of you have reached out to me and enjoyed the interview, so thank you for that. Can't say that I didn't have a blast. Had a blast talking to Zach about drums and about Sting and about how his connections and stuff. I stepped in a few things. I kind of knew a little bit too much. Sometimes when you're too familiar with the person you're interviewing, you can step in things. So I had to cut a couple things, but it was very funny when I stepped in them because they were just things he couldn't talk about. But other than that, we had a great interview. It was a lot of fun. So I hope you all enjoyed that. All right, so let's jump into the first question. My first question is going to come from Yuri Jones. It's spelled Lori, but it's Yuri, and you're going to see him ask the question.
Morning, everyone. My name's Yuri Jones. I've known Earl for quite a few years now, and I think he's just absolutely fantastic. For the drum community, there's so much. It's incredible. Now, as you can see, I live near the coast. This is in North Wales, UK. Now, I've got a question. I've got to flip the camera, so just bear with me. So I'm going to walk from our little patio into the room where the drums are. There we go. Right, my question is, there's my lovely kit. Set up ready to rock. My question is, do you really have to have a hole in your bass drum to mic up your drums? You really need to have that. My other question is, I've got a Black Beauty there at the moment, which I love, same as Earl's. What does a die-cast tube do to a snare drum? So there we are. There's my setup. I'm going to flip over again and just say thank you again. Okay. Okay, so there's my question. I know I look a bit like Ben Gunn, but there we are. That's where it goes. Thanks very much. Cheers, Earl. Bye.
Thank you, Yuri, for the kind comments about the channel. And I've kind of known Yuri since I think I started doing real videos heavily. Probably had 100, 150 subscribers. Yuri started watching the videos. I think he commented on some of the early Ask Earl Anything shows too. I think he had some questions. And it's been around a long time. And thank you for being a sub and following me for this long. I really do appreciate it. The two questions he asked, one was about bass drum head. Do you have to cut a hole in your bass drum head? And the next question was about die-cast hoops on a snare drum. So let's talk about the first one, bass drum holes. Yuri, it's not important that you cut a hole in your bass drum. I'll remember the first time I went on a gig and they wanted to mic the bass drum, and it was a very interesting gig too. It was a Russian-Polish New Year's party. And the drummer who played in the band normally, he had double booked, and he sent me on his gig. Now, here was the thing. The guys on the gig, 4 of the guys didn't speak any English. 3 of the guys spoke broken English, okay? All 7 of the guys had their own bottle of vodka on the table, where we was right next to the band where our table was. The whole gig was in Russian and Polish. I had a couple American tunes, but most of the tunes were rock, jazz, shuffles, funk, disco, in other languages. I didn't know the songs. They would just tell me the feel, and I would just kind of cop along. And it was just an amazingly interesting night for me to play. I didn't even know it was countdown time when they started counting down, because they were counting down in Russian. So I just didn't know it. But that was the first time I went on a gig with my Gretsch kit, my walnut Gretsch kit, and it had a front head that had no hole in it. And the keyboard player who did the sound said, "Hey, can I cut a hole in your bass drum?" I was like, "Heck no, you cannot cut a hole in my bass drum. That is not happening." So they stuck the mic on the front of the bass drum. They didn't probably get the sound they wanted, because you get a different sound when you stick a mic in a bass drum. So I have bass drums that all have holes on the front head for some reason. I have played my 18-inch bass drum with a solid head. I've played the 20-inch with a solid head for years when I was doing a lot of gigs and I wanted that solid head. But when I started really miking drums, doing studio stuff, I cut a hole in it. Now, is it a requirement? No. But I will tell you it's a different sound when you put a mic in a bass drum with a pillow in it, like this one has. This has got a very dead bass drum sound. You only get that sound when you put the mic in the drum. You get the beater sound, and you also get the pillow dead sound. Now, if I'm playing in a studio and I had 2 heads on it and I didn't want to, and I wanted it a little thumpier, one of the things I do, and I did this on a recent cover, I did a song called "I've Had the Time of My Life." It's an old wedding song that we used to do in our wedding band. My wife used to sing. That was another thing that happened on the South Carolina trip, was after watching Mark Husbands doing what he was doing with an iPad, I said, "Hey, you know, I could basically set up something on an iPad and you could sing and I could play drums with you along with tracks and we could have fun." So we may be doing some covers that way. We may even, if it gets really good and she starts having fun with it, who knows? Maybe we will go out and do some gigs together as a duo. That would be fun. My problem is I don't sing, so I don't add anything other than playing drums, but that's another story. I had a lot playing drums. I think a live drummer with those tracks kind of gives it a little different life than programmed drums with those tracks and a guy just sings. And I see a lot of guys, they act like they play keys, they act like they play guitar, but they just sing. Now, every once in a while, you find a guy that's doing a solo act that does some really unique things, like using samplers or loops and all kinds of cool stuff. But few and far between do you find guys that are really good, decent players doing those live gigs. But this guy, Mark, was a great player. So anyhow, backtrack to the bass drum head. So with that said, I would say you don't have to cut it. But what I was talking about was I did this cover. I've had the time of my life. And my little Gretsch bass drum, 18-inch bass drum, was the kick drum. And I have a kick port on it and a mic in the kick port. The thing was just woofing away. It was just so woofy. And I took a blanket, I threw it against the front head, and that killed and dampened it. So one of the things you can do, Yuri, if you want more of a funk sound, is take a heavy blanket or a packing blanket or pillow, even a big pillow, and throw it against the front bass drum head, and you'll get a more dead front, you'll get a more dead sound, that dead rock sound that you're looking for. That's one thing you can do with it. But no, you don't have to cut holes in your bass drum head. And you have a really nice bass drum head, nice kit that I saw. So I would say if you don't want to cut it, don't cut it, man. Now, I will tell you this. Don't leave your drums at a studio. I did that once, and the studio engineer decided to cut a hole in my Favs bass drum head, my vintage Favs drum kit with a vintage Favs bass drum head, and I was not very happy. And he did a really terrible job of cutting a hole too, so that's just another part of the story. And that was one of the holes I almost fell in with the Zach interview. And I knew he might see it because he knew Zach too, so I didn't say it. I doubt he'll ever find Ask Earl anything where I talk about the time I left my Fiberglass Favs drum kit at a studio and he decided to cut a hole in my bass drum. That pissed me off. So just be honest, be careful. But sound engineers, they always want to cut holes in it. That's the way they get their sound. Now, if I was in a studio and I didn't want to cut the head off, the other thing you can do is actually take the front head off and then put a pillow in it. That works. Just be careful with doing that long term with toms on top of the bass drum. The weight of the toms will warp the shell. And there's many a great 70s drum kit that has very warped bass drums because they took the front head off to get the Halblane sound, but had the tom mount right on it, and it was just weighing down the shell. So that's another problem. So when you buy vintage drums, you want to look at that kind of thing. Is the shell in round? Bass drums that are not in round probably didn't have a front bass drum head for a long time. That's the reason why you cut a hole versus taking the head off. If you're going to put toms on the bass drum, it's going to weigh the shell down. It's going to warp the shell. So that's another thing to think about. Now, the second part of your question, Yuri, was about die-cast hoops on a snare drum. Now, I will tell you that when I first started making YouTube videos here on YouTube land, my Black Beauty had die-cast hoops on it, on the front and the bottom, the top and the bottom, batter and snare side. It's a different sound. It's just a more focused sound. Die-cast hoops focus the sound. The triple flange, a little more opened up. But I think the die-cast hoops are very nice sounding drums. I have a die-cast hoops on my cast aluminum. This sounds great. Works really well on the Black Beauties. And by the way, Stuart Copeland of the Police, he used a pearl brass snare drum, chrome over brass snare drum with a die-cast hoop on the top, rim, and a triple flange on the bottom. That became his Tama drum. Tama made him a chrome over brass snare drum with a die-cast top and a triple flange bottom. So that is one way of doing things. If you want to ever try something, buy a triple flange, buy a die-cast rim and take off your triple flange and put it on and see if you like the sound. Start with that before you buy the bottom, before you go the full distance. But it does have a cool sound. It's a different sound. Changing hoops is another way to get different sounds. I've got a couple hoops I changed. I got a wood hoop I put on every once in a while. I've got some die-cast hoops. I've got some triple flange. I got some brass hoops. I've got those S hoops with the really flat edge. Those are very interesting sounding. So the hoops will affect the sound of the snare drum. It's just what you're looking for. So, but great questions, and thank you for sending in a video question, Yuri. I appreciate that. And now I won't call you Lori anymore. I'll call you Yuri because I was really screwing that up for all these years. You got me. So thanks for telling me how to say it. All right. My next question comes from, let me find it, Charlotte Pradella, P-R-A-D-E-L-A, Charlotte Pradella. And she said, and I don't even think she's going to watch Ask Earl anything. She was on the Rupert Holmes song, Escape, the Pina Colada song. She asked me a question, and I thought I would address this question. She said, great performance. I'd like to try the same. Where do you find the drum score? The drum score. This is a question I get asked often, by the way, on my channel. I'll do a cover of a song, and then somebody will write me and say, hey, do you have the drum score? Do you have the chart for the song? Now, there are guys here on YouTube that play the charts. Some are better than others. I like playing a chart once in a while, but I like doing it more like a big band chart. Every once in a while, when I get stuck on something, I'll pull the music out to see what's going on and learn the music. The only cover I can really tell you I did that on was Living Color, Cult of Personality. I had to find the chart, and I did. I realized there was a chart for this song, found it, and figured out the 3/4 bar, odd phrasing going on. Once I saw that chart, I just left it up off to the side, away from out of camera, and I would check it once in a while. But I rarely look at a chart when I'm doing anything. If I'm doing a big band thing like Glenn Miller's In the Mood, there's a chart there because that's what I'm following. That's the roadmap of the song with all the horn hits and stuff. So that's a different type of reading than reading a drum score like Matthew Jackson does, CCM drummer. He writes out a drum score and plays it note for note. Some of you guys try to read the drum scores and play your drum covers. Some of you are better at it than others, okay? Now, I would say there's a lot of merit to learning how to play drums that way, but there's also a lot of merit in learning how to play and transcribe your drums by ear. Now, Matthew Jackson, I will say, he transcribes it, so he writes out his own charts. So when he's saying he's writing an exact chart, it's his transcription, his ears, the way he heard it, and the way he wrote it down. So he's 95% there. Then you got to get the feel on it. That's another part of the story. I'm not going to go into Matthew Jackson. You and I've had Matthew Jackson on my channel enough times. You all know his position on these things, CCM drummer. But when it comes to reading a drum score to the songs I play, I don't read drum scores, and I can't even find drum scores for most of them. So most of what you're hearing me play is what I'm hearing the original drummer do. And a lot of times I play with the original drummer in my ears. I'm not just playing to a click all the time. Sometimes I've got the original drum track in my ears, and I'm getting it as close as I can get it. Sometimes I toss the track. I say, if I don't need it, I'll just play along and do it my way. And that happens occasionally. But usually I'm pretty darn close to the original. I just throw in a little bit more me, my fills. But reading a drum chart, if you're going to read those scores, you better get them right. That's all I got to say. If you're reading those scores and you're not getting it right, then listen to your drum covers and make sure they're right. Because I've seen a couple guys, they don't listen to what they played, apparently, and they put it out. I'm going, that's a triplet. You can't play it like a 16th note pattern. You got triplets, got 1 triplet, 2 triplet, You've got to know triplets. 1 E and a 2 E and a 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 1 and 2 and 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4 triplet, 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a. When you're reading a chart, note for note, and it's written out with a triplet, you got to have a different phrasing of it. I see a lot of guys making those kinds of mistakes reading those charts. So listen to the music. If you listen to that track, the way the drummer played, you say, hey, that phrase I'm looking at on this music is a little bit different than the way I'm playing it. What am I doing wrong? And then you might actually learn how to play triplets. One of the problems in today's younger generation with click tracks is everybody plays to a click. Everybody plays duple really well, but that triplet thing is a little bit off because I grew up playing triplet to duple, triplet to duple. And that ta-ta thing, that's triplet based. John Bonham had a triplet feel in his playing. No matter if he was playing duple or playing triplet, shuffly, he had that triplet feel. So if you're reading drum charts, read them right. That's all I got to say. I watched a couple of you guys. I never comment, by the way. And you all know who you are, so I'm not going to ever comment on your videos. I'll say nice things only. I'm a nice thing only guy on YouTube. I don't have the time to criticize people and start something with somebody. But I think some of you are getting there. You're getting popularity and stuff. Listen to what you're playing and make sure you're playing it right. Because you've got the music there and you're reading it, read it correctly. That's all. Now, we all got our place where we can't go any further, so it's good to stretch ourselves. But do I use drum scores? Not for the most part, I don't. Every once in a while when I get stuck on something, I'll go look at it. But most of the times I'm learning my parts by listening. So that's a skill set I think every drummer needs to learn, especially if you're going to sit in with somebody. When I sat in with Mark Husbands in South Carolina, what you saw me doing was he put the track on and I had to play along to it. And there was no drum track. There wasn't even a click on those tracks. So I had to figure out where the beat was listening to the bass player and the way he was singing it, and kind of had one of these. And I said, "You don't play with a click?" No, I don't have a sophisticated setup like that. So he just grooves along with it. He goes, "Yeah, it moves a little bit, but that's okay. As long as it sounds real." I said, "Got it." Well, as long as you know the intro. That's the only thing I'm going to say. Know the intro of the song. But that's for the next time. Anyhow, that's my thing about drum scores. I thought I would bring that up. Let's see what else we got going on. My next is not a question. This is another traveling down another hole here. Last month, at the beginning of the month, I put out a video saying, should I keep doing Ask Earl Anything? And I got a great response from everybody. And it was all based on my new friend David Bateman's video where he said, I would never ask me, I don't like videos that say ask me anything. Now, he really wasn't talking about me, but I used that little clip, the kind of the way that the local news uses the clip of somebody they interview on the streets and make them say something different. I kind of did that to the poor guy, so I really apologized to him. He actually saw that video, saw himself up on screen, realized how it came off, and he found my email and he wrote me, and I just wanted to say, read a little bit of this. Not a lot, just a little bit. He said, "Hey Earl, how you doing? I've had a fascinating evening. I watched your video referencing something I put up, and while I did leave a comment for you on it, I just had to drop you a line privately to say hello." So I thought that was kind of sweet that he did that. And I did answer his question on YouTube. I answered what he said on the video. But we had a chat back and forth. I hope to one day somehow do a little back and forth and talk about vintage drums and how we got into this little thing. But he really did not do anything wrong. And anybody that's saying anything bad about David Bateman, please go say something nice to him, okay? Some of you actually subscribed and understood what I was trying to say. And that it was my jump off to say, hey, is my show pretentious? Am I being pretentious keeping this show? And the outpouring of love from those that love watching this show, thank you. I appreciated that. But I hope to one day get our schedules aligned and have David Bateman come on and talk to him, maybe a Zoom, or I'll be on his channel. I don't know which, but I just wanted you to know we touched base. He laughed about it. So I'm glad he laughed about it. Because I really didn't mean any harm to him, and I didn't mean anything bad to him. He actually just spurred on a question that needed to be asked, I thought. Because I just don't want the show to get stale. You know what I mean? That's the truth. That's why I'm adding video to things, and it's just making it a little more interesting. So my last question comes from Sean Woodley, my student. So Sean asked the question.
Mr. Earl, and this is my Ask Earl Anything question. What's your top 10 drum covers that you've done?
So Sean asks this question. Sean says, what are my top 10 drum covers? Now, let me tell you something. I've got over 900 videos on YouTube. A majority of them are drum covers. I think it's probably close to 900 drum covers. I think I got another 100 videos of other things, or maybe more than 100 videos of other things. Let me just give you some statistics. My top drum covers by views. The song Down Under by Men at Work. Believe it or not, I got 33,000 views on that one. Many of you found me with that video, okay? Another one that's a real shocker. I did this, and that Down Under I did in 18 sometime. I did it on a Concert Tom kit. I just played lots of fills and played whatever the heck I wanted. It was a drumless track. I had a lot of fun with it. Just the two of us. Not a drumless track. This is me trying to copy Steve Gadd without X-Track stems. I've got 17,000 views on that plus. Not my favorite version of it. I mean, I did the best I could. I kind of locked in with it. A lot of guys watch it apparently because it's pretty locked in. So I get nice comments occasionally. Another one that gets a lot of views, and it's been around the longest, is Time of the Season by the Zombies. And I was in a band called the Swigs, and we were doing that song, and we were also doing a recording session, live recording session down here, and this is the first time I recorded drums really in Studio B. This is Studio B I'm in today, where the Concert Tom kit lives. There's a door on this. The door shuts. We have the main studio room where this computer is and my other kit is. We tore everything down and put the band out there. I was in the booth running the studio, running the audio from here. But that was my test of the audio. Could I get decent audio with 4 microphones? I did. I got 4 mics, 2 overheads, and a kick and a snare. Tom sounded great. Sounded good on the session I did. So that's why I did that video. That's got 15,000 views. Now, when it comes to my top 10 videos, there are a bunch of videos I really like. And one of them has got 14,000 views. It's called Easy by the Commodores. And believe it or not, that was one of my early X-Track Stems endeavors. Truth of the matter is, if I was to recut that again, I would have left the drummer on. I didn't have a click, and I was kind of floating with it. Some of my early X-Track Stems, I was learning how to... I didn't realize I could bring the drummer track in and play along to it, which I should have realized, but I wasn't really thinking. Trey B kind of hit me to that. He said something to Jeff Holden or Trey B, one or the other, said something about playing along to the track. I think it was Trey. And anyhow, long and short of it, since then, I usually have the drum track there, and I can bring it up on a fader if I want to, or I can take it out and mute it if I want to. I also create click tracks in Logic. I figured out how to do that. But back then when I did Easy, it wasn't that. It was me grooving along with the song. So that was kind of an interesting one. A lot of views, a lot of guys like it. I played it pretty close to exact for not having the track on. One of my other favorites, that's another one that I did without taking the drums out, was Take Me Home by Phil Collins. That's a favorite of mine. Actually, this is kind of the setup I used. It was 8, 10, 13, 15, 16. Yeah, that was that one. It's a trance song. Really hard to play. Really hard to stay in it for 5 minutes. And then catch some of the fills at the end. I created some fills for it over top of that drum machine thing. Had a lot of fun with that one. Another favorite of mine is Asia by Steely Dan. I did that. That was one of my early drumless tracks. That had no click and no drummer in it. Otherwise, I couldn't have played it because I couldn't play over top of Steve Gadd's great drumming. Was one of those songs I had to play without him. And I'm amazed at what I came up with. It's my own solo based around my hearing Steve Gadd play it. So it's not me playing the solo. Like, there's so many guys out there that just learn and transcribe the solo, and I give them a lot of credit. Anybody transcribes the solo or reads the solo, I give you a lot of credit, and then makes it feel good even better. And there's a couple guys out there that are amazing drummers that do it. I am not an amazing soloist. I am not a soloist drummer. I'm not a jazz drummer, really. I'm a rock drummer. I'm a song drummer. I'm a pocket drummer. But I like to dabble, and Asia was one of those dabbles for me. So that is definitely in my top 10. But I have a couple other Steely Dan songs I really like. Another one is Josie. I like the way that came out. I actually stacked 2 Chinas to get kind of that garbage can effect that Jim Keltner played on Josie. By the way, I played the whole Asia album. I have all the songs from the Asia album are recorded in a playlist from Steely Dan. You all know that I'm a Billy Joel fan. There's a couple of Billy Joel songs I really like. Oh, one more Steely Dan song I forgot. Gold Teeth Part 2. That's from Katie Lied. A lot of you guys really dug that one. It's kind of a 3/4 Jeff Porcaro tune. Check it out. Billy Joel. 2 Billy Joel songs, but I did a bunch of Billy Joel songs that I really like. I did a lot of the Stranger album. I don't know if I did the whole Stranger album. Piano Man's got a lot of hits. I don't know how many thousands of views Piano Man's got. But to be honest, that's not my favorite song, Billy Joel song. Scenes from Italian Restaurant. I actually have 3 versions of that, and the last one is my favorite, the one I did recently in 2020 that got released this year because it was blocked for 2 years. but that's my favorite version of it. And I really enjoyed doing the camera thing with my grandson, where I did Prelude and Angry Young Man. I had a lot of fun with that. I have a camera-only version of it where it's moving camera, and it's just really cool. I really enjoyed that. But I didn't play my best on it, but I really enjoyed the vibe of that one. The next one is Chicago songs. There's a couple Chicago songs that I really enjoyed. Believe it or not, most of the Chicago covers, I've done 80 Chicago songs. Probably got the most Chicago songs out there. Obscurity, too, to the hits. My favorite hit is Old Days. That's one of my favorite hits. That's the one I really enjoy the most, even though the most views I got is on Beginnings. The original version, I'm playing over top of Danny Surfin. I may recover that someday. I don't know if I have the same chops I had in 2016 when I did that song. But there's a song called Loneliness is Just a Word. Incredible song. I had a lot of fun on that. I did some crazy fills on it. And it's definitely one you might enjoy. So check that out. I'm going to leave links to some of these videos. Then I've got a couple other ones that I want to say. One is Tower of Power, What is Hip? Again, that was top 5 video of 2020. Another one is a David Sanborn song I did called Promise Me the Moon. None of you guys know it. I had about 300 views on it, but I just was on fire that day playing. I had a lot of fun with that one. So all that to say is there's a lot of songs I've done. I don't know if that's 10, Sean, or not, but I do want to say that thank you all for watching my videos and enjoying my shows. And I hope you guys enjoy this Ask Earl Anything. And anyhow, send in video questions. More video questions, the better. We're going to end with a little bit more of 805 Breeze, my friend John from New Jersey. Give him a listen. Check him out. Subscribe to his channel. Everybody. I don't know if he has a channel, by the way. He probably doesn't have a channel, but you can subscribe to him anyhow, because he may one day have a channel when he sees himself on camera. Who knows? Anyhow, thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. Love you all. Have a great week. Bye.